Fall time. My favorite time of the year. The cooler weather, the leaves changing from bright green to a more robust orange and yellow, and the town festival. I'm sure everyone in a rural area has their own name, but here in Evansville, Indiana, we have the annual Westside Nut Club Festival. Nothing too big, but in my eyes it's the best time to be alive. The smell of chili dogs, funnel cakes, and packaged nachos fill the air. Every year me and my group of friends relish our time spent here. And this year will be no different. We sit back and wait on this monument's event with a twinkle in our eye. We save every penny, in hopes to win a giant stuffed animal, or some consolation prize. The lights shine with a brilliant color scheme, and the music playing off each individual attraction draws me in, almost in a hypnotizing way. Franklin Street is filled to the brim with people of all types. Me, being a native Englishman from Birmingham, have never seen anything like this. My original town was lively, but never anything of this magnitude. It wasn't overbearing, yet there was still many faces to fill the place up. My parents moved here when I was a mere 6 years old. I didn't think much of the town at first, as it was my first interaction with American people. But the humble head nods, and hey how are yous from complete strangers really bring home that sense of belonging. Being a high schooler can really startle you up, however here it was almost like I was truly one of their own. My first encounter was electric. My mother and father asked me if I was ready for a surprise. They had given me toys, or a trip to Chuck E. Cheese before, so I expected nothing different this time. It was around 6 o'clock when we all got into the family SUV, and set sail for the festival. I didn't know what to think of it. My 6-year-old mind couldn't process everything that was going on. Rides, food, dancing, it was all so magical. I thought this was the Indiana version of Disney World. I was in heaven. The night grew into closing hours, but I wasn't ready to leave. There was still so much to do. So much to see. I hadn't rode all the attractions. I just needed 20 more minutes. But the night called, and it was past my bedtime. It had taken me no time to shower, and fall asleep, holding on to my newly one-stitch stuffed animal. From then on I was addicted. 8 years have passed as I am 14 at the time of writing this log. Yet still every year, it's like it's the first time seeing it. Everything so new and fresh. The adrenaline still courses through my veins every time I step onto the fairgrounds. This year was no different than any other. My mates Jackson, his girlfriend Sam, and my closest friend Anna, were ready to paint the town red. The time was closing in, and we could feel the vibrations from the rides in the air. I was hell-bent on winning one of those bears, and confessing my love to Anna. She was the first person that came to speak to me when I arrived in the States, and we have been inseparable ever since. Jackson knew of my crush, but kept it a secret amongst gentlemen. As freshmen, we didn't really have a lot of social standing, so we mainly kept to ourselves. The school was split into sects, and of course, we were the underlings. No matter though, we were a band of merry misfits. Our friendship provided more than I could ever ask for, and for that I am grateful. Lunchtime rolled around, and it was time we formulated our plan. Jackson's mom would pick us all up from my house after school, so the transportation was set. Anna didn't have the privilege of parents with extra money, as they lived paycheck to paycheck. But as an sophisticated English lad, I would be more than happy to cover her fare. The bracelets for unlimited rides came up to $25 each. I estimated the cost for food would be around $30, and anything extra I set aside $20 for. This was a brilliant plan, and was sure to win over Anna. The triad of Anna, Jackson, and myself sat at the lunch table, making 100% sure that everything would fall in our favor, when Sam came in like a bolt of lightning. "Did you guys hear?" "Trevor, did you hear?" she asked, as I siphoned through my memory log to recall of anything she may be talking about. "No Sam," I said. "What did you hear?" Sam, not being one to hold her tongue, replied, "There's going to be a kick-ass clown show at the fair this year. And guess who they are bringing in?" This did not set me into an excitement as she had hoped for. Sam, being who she is, loves to press my buttons. She absolutely knows I hate clowns. But I couldn't look weak in front of Anna. I gripped my juice as hard as I could, awaiting her response. "They are bringing in freaking Ziggy the Clown. You know. The one from TV." I've got to get a picture with him. As Sam sat down, Jackson took a look over at me to see how I was holding up. My hands gripping the bottle, the little beads of sweat starting to pour out of my straight black hair, my green eyes turning into pools of tears. I had to keep it together. Luckily, Jackson interrupted her monologue by saying, "Clowns are for babies. I mean, we are in high school now. Why would you want a balloon animal, Sam?" He played down the encounter with her ease. I wanted to hug him so hard, but I had to keep my composure. Sam ranted on that he was a local celebrity, and we should take time from the rides to get a picture with him in hopes it will go viral. I wasn't one for that sort of publicity, especially if it means going through with her plan. Ziggy was sort of a neighborhood superstar. There are claims he was supposed to have his own show on cable TV, but he turned it down because he didn't want to sell out to the major corporations, but there are others that say he was just too drunk to sign the contracts. Nevertheless, for the moment, that plan was foiled. The school day ended and the plan had finally began. Jackson rode a different bus than Sam, Anna, and myself. As the four of us divided, the three remaining were finally on the trail to my house. My house was just a few blocks down from the fair. I could hear it. The rides being checked, the food being freshly cooked. I could just feel everything going right. As the bus stopped and we hopped off, I looked forward and saw something strange. The earth stopped spinning for a moment. There he was. Out of the abyss of hell. He stood there with his pointed multicolored hair, red pants that cut off at the ankles, that white shirt with red stripes, and a nose painted the color red. It was him. It was Ziggy. I was petrified. I wanted to make a brisk haste. No, scratch that. I wanted to run like hell into my parents' house. But my legs had turned to 10 tons of stone. Where was Sam? Why wasn't she jumping for joy? It's as if no one else even noticed he was there. But why was he here? The light from the sun was still beaming down on us, so his show was hours away. And why wasn't he smiling? It was a stare. The kind of stare a lion gives his prey right before they pounce on them, sending them into the afterlife. Had he gone mad? Or was he just drunk off his ass like the stories had claimed? Regardless, I didn't have time to waste. This abomination was on my street, and I was his target. I still couldn't move, and there was no one there to save me. Wait. He wasn't moving either. Surely if he wanted me dead, he would have done it already. So why the standoff? I felt like a piece of meat, sent to the slaughter, but he hadn't moved a muscle. Right then I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Anna. "Hey Trevor, are you okay?" she asked. I turned around and looked at her. I couldn't hide the profuse sweat rolling down my body. Wait. Why did I take my eyes off of him? I jerked my eyes back to see my enemy, but he was gone. As quickly as he appeared, he had vanished. What was that about? That's all that went through my mind at that time. Did I feed into Sam's taunting? I'm hallucinating, that's the only explanation I could come up with. My feet were free, I could move again. I grabbed Anna's hand and swiftly ran her into my house along with Sam. "What the hell, man?" Sam said, as she reached her arm back into the safety of her own body. I don't know how hard I pulled at her, but it must have been uncomfortable. It was a little after 4 p.m. Jackson would be pulling up in an hour, so we could start getting everything situated. I couldn't go out in this condition. "Hey ladies, if you'll excuse me, I have to take a quick shower." "Help yourselves to whatever you like," I said to the two of them. I headed up to my room to grab a change of clothes. I was drenched in sweat, and couldn't think of an excuse fast enough to explain to them why. I must have made an idiot out of myself. I had to stop beating myself up though. Tonight was the night I proclaimed my love to Anna, and nothing, not even some creepy clown, was going to stand in my way. It was like clockwork. I had gotten my clothes on right in the nick of time, to watch Jackson and his mother pull into my driveway. She let off 3 loud horn beeps, alerting us that it was time to hit the road. My palms were beginning to sweat again. This time it wasn't because of Ziggy, but because I knew it was almost time to tell Anna how I truly felt. My dad always said a man takes his destiny into his own hands. So that's what I planned to do tonight. The girl sat in the middle row of Jackson's mom's car, and he and I sat in the very back. I leaned over close to him to whisper in his ear, as I didn't want anyone else to hear. "Hey man, I'm really nervous about tonight. Is there any way we could talk Sam out of the Ziggy show?" I asked. It was cowardly of me to make this request, but I knew Jackson would look out for me. "Sure man. Just leave her to me," he said. Right then I could feel a calm ease roll over my body. I knew I could depend on him in this time of need. "Here we are, kids. You don't have to go home, but you have to get the hell out of my car," Jackson's mom said with a laughter in her voice. As we exited her vehicle, she waved us goodbye, and wished us a good time. I took a look around at the still dusking sun, and the life that had entered Franklin Street. It was the best feeling a person could imagine. As I took a look back at the crew, my eyes stopped and fixated on Anna. Her long brunette hair swaying in the gentle breeze. The pink dress she wore, with her slightly used Nike Air Force Ones. She was a sight to behold. I couldn't have painted a better picture for myself. "So where's the first stop?" Anna asked. "Well, of course we're going to ride the gravity spinner," Sam replied. Our night had officially started. After a few rides, and a couple games, I hadn't realized that the nightfall was upon us. It must have slipped my mind. I had to get to the roller coaster with Anna so we could be alone. I suggested that be our stop. As we were heading towards the gigantic circle, we were pulled on a detour by Sam. No. She wouldn't. She wouldn't sacrifice a perfect night for a picture of a washed-up clown. To my surprise, that is the direction we were heading. The stage was set up for Ziggy to do his performance. I figured I could bear it for little while if it means I would get my chance with Anna. The time came for him to take the stage. But there was no Ziggy. Was he halfway down a bottle of tequila? Maybe he couldn't walk straight enough to even get on the stage. This was perfect. We stood in the crowd for 5 minutes or so. There was still no Ziggy. We called it a wrap on the show and continued our way towards the roller coaster. There it was. That gigantic circle filled with neon lights. It was like reaching the top of Mount Everest. I gently grabbed Anna's hand to guide her to the ride. No sooner had I done that, Sam came out of the blue and screamed, "There he is! Look! There's Ziggy!" No way in hell was this true. We looked over by one of the buildings locked in by a sea of food trucks. There he stood. Still in the same clothes, but this time he was smiling. Waving us over in a most sinister way. It wasn't an inviting wave by any means. The caution that ran through my mind was overwhelming. I knew better than to go over there to that creepy-ass clown. But Sam took off towards him. Ziggy turned around and started walking into the building. My mind screamed out, "Sam! Stop!" But nothing left my mouth. Jackson ran after her and Anna pulled to follow. There was no turning back. The thought of internet fame was going to lead me towards a heart attack. Sam was the first one inside the building, followed by Jackson, Anna, and myself. After crossing the entrance, the setup was like nothing I had ever seen. There were no cobwebs, no dust, no tarps thrown over the chairs. It was a carnival in itself. Lights glowing of every color in the rainbow, popcorn machines, and even a fortune teller machine. This building had no reason to exist. I slowly caught up to the rest of the group. They looked as bewildered as myself. Sam had her phone out awaiting the opportunity to snap a picture. But there was something very off. We heard the chuckles coming from random parts of the house. Noises that shouldn't have been made by any human being. I was on high alert, but it seemed everyone else toned out the infernal laughter. What was that? Something had crossed my eyesight, and I couldn't make out the silhouette. Was it an animal? No, it stood on 2 legs, not 4. But there were no animal tamers, so the probability of an escaped chimp was little to none. This was becoming more than I could handle. "Okay Sam, he's not in here, we can go now," I said with as much power behind my voice as I could muster. But it fell upon deaf ears. She continued on down deeper into the house. Again. There it was. That same passing shadow. It's fast. Almost too fast to be human. Not even an Olympic sprinter could move that fast. Sam led from the front, and I was trailing in the rear through this maze of a house. All of a sudden the music stopped. "Welcome to Ziggy's Fun House." That voice. Was it him? Is this his own special attraction? Feel free to play as long as you want. As a matter of fact, why don't you all play forever? Especially you, Trevor. How in the hell did this enigma know my name? I've never met him, so how did he know my name? That statement must have kicked something into Sam's head. She turned and said, "Okay, we can leave now. I don't want the picture anymore," as she shoved her phone back in her pocket. "Once you play, you can never leave," the voice said again. This time followed by a gruesome bit of laughter. We stood for a few seconds, trying to wrap our heads around what had just taken place. It was high time we found the exit. This time I took the lead, and everyone else followed. The light began to flicker. All of a sudden there was darkness. We stood at a standstill until they came back on. The room had changed. The lights were a fluorescent white, and the room had went from a fun carnival to a house full of mirrors. I couldn't make out left from right, up from down. I just knew we needed to get the hell out of there. With Anna's hand in mine, we headed down a path of mirrors that seemed to be a hallway of sorts. There they go again. The lights had started to flicker once more. The chuckles seemed to have grown closer and closer. One by one we reassured each other that we were all in attendance, so that we leave no one behind. A squeaking cry was heard. It was Sam. We all turned, but could only see the reflection of Ziggy cornering Sam. He grew taller as the seconds passed by, his mouth turned from a harmless, normal smile into razor-sharp teeth. Teeth that would be best suited for a shark, or any large animal that would use them to shred the meat from their prey's hide. She had nowhere to run, and we had no way of getting to her. We tried every passage, but it seemed it all led to a dead end. We stopped as the clown turned to look at us with that putrid smile. Right after he turned to Sam. The mirrors were covered in a crimson coat of liquid. Her screams became more faint, as we were helpless to stop what was ensuing. Jackson dropped to his knees. Tears falling from his eyes, but this was no time for grieving. "Jackson, get up, we have to get out of here," I said. Pulling on his arms, trying to give him the strength he needed to make it to the exit. Wherever that might be. We finally made it out of the Hall of Mirrors. Home free is what I was hoping for until we heard Ziggy say, "What's the rush? We're just getting started." "Jackson, my boy. That Sam sure was a snack. I'm sure you'll be just as fun to play with." The laughter set Jackson into a fury. "Come out, you son of a bitch. I'm not scared of you," he shouted. But Ziggy was one step ahead. The lights shut off again, turning the room from mirrors to a bumper car ring. The circle had to be a block long, and there were nothing but 3 cars to man. There was no way in hell I was going to let Anna ride by herself, but each car only seated one. No sooner as we mounted the cars, the voice came back over the speaker. "Here's the rules, kiddos. 2 of you will win. Take the cars down the track and cross the finish line. Last one there is a clown's meal." There it is. More laughter. We had no choice but to race. Once we sat down, the seat belts buckled us in by themselves, and lined us up as if it were a drag race. Red light, then a yellow. We heard a horn at the green, and the cars took off. Seemingly moving at the same pace, I figured we could stay in a line and cross at the same time. That wasn't the case. I accidentally bumped Anna's car, causing her to slow down. I'm in the lead now with Jackson right behind me. Once the cars touch, it makes them lose speed. So the way to win would be to cause impact to the other car to gain speed. My heart was racing. Did I just send the woman of my dreams to become clown food? No. I can't let this happen. How could we escape? I couldn't think fast enough. What was I to do? Jackson approached my car and swerved. But not to cause impact to me, but to himself. He looked at me with tears in his eyes as I sped up, and he slowed down. Soon he was close enough to Anna, so that he could do the same. We had a large margin over Jackson as he was in last place by a long shot. There it was, the finish line. I could see that checkered stripe getting closer and closer. Within seconds I crossed it, followed by Anna. Jackson finally made it across. The seatbelts unbuckled and released us from that horrible ride. That is, everyone but Jackson. The building itself started to shake as the floor from underneath his car started to crumble. A hole opened up, just big enough to devour his car. He sacrificed himself to save us. Anna ran into my arms crying, and belting like a banshee. The only other sounds that were heard, were that of Jackson's screams, and bones being grinded up by that demonic clown. The room changed once more as the lights went off. This time from the bumper car track, to a hallway. At the end there was a sign that said exit. This was it. No tricks. This was the way out. We could hear the people still enjoying the fair from outside. The rides being started and stopped, the sense of normality we had been awaiting. Before we could rush off into those sweet sounds, the voice had came back on the speakers. Well kiddos, this is it. The final act in Ziggy's fun house. The rules are simple, first one out the door gets to live. Last one out. Well, you'll be joining your friends. And we will play together. Forever. Did I mention how much I hate clowns? We had to come up with a plan to take care of this demon here and now. I don't know where he came from, but I was intent on sending it straight to hell. Then it hit me. I knew what I needed to do. But I couldn't tell Anna. One wrong move and that was it, we would both be on a milk box. The sound of a racing gun went off. This was our alarm to start the foot race. I counted to 3 and we both took off as fast as we could. However, this wasn't a fair race. Ziggy was right behind us, gaining traction as we fled. It was now or never. I couldn't waste another second. I stumbled and fell to the ground. Anna didn't notice, so the plan was going as I thought. She crossed the line, and Ziggy was right there to claim me as his prize. He got close enough to hover over me. There was the single light beaming in from that exit point, the hallway we had raced in was dark. And amidst that eternal black, was this horrific clown. His teeth covered in saliva and blood from the last 2 victims. He leaned over me and said, "Looks like we can play forever, Trevor." Within that split second, I shoved a razor-sharp piece of stone that I had found laying on the ground after my stumble, right into his mouth. It shattered his teeth and pierced right out of his skull. He was down. Twitching on the ground, the clown laid slain. I struggled to get back to my feet as I hopped out of the door back into the fairgrounds. Anna rushed to my aid and gave me a hug filled with so much passion. She asked if I was all right and gave me a kiss on the cheek. She didn't ask questions, she just wanted to get me help as soon as possible. As we walked away from that abandoned house, we gave a sigh of relief, and a mournful goodbye to our fallen friends. But wait. What was that noise? A gurgle. A monstrous gurgle. But I killed him, there's no way he's still breathing. At that moment, a long arm reached out of that building and grabbed Anna by the arm. Before I could realize it, in one swoop she was dragged back into that house. The door closed right after her body had entered. I beat on the door, and banged on it until a police officer came and dragged me off of it. "Hey kid, this is private property. Move along," he said. "To hell with you." He took Anna. "Anna, come back." I screamed. In a frenzied state I continued to pummel the door. The officer wrestled me down and put his handcuffs on me, before dragging me into his car to be escorted home. I screamed her name as the car pulled away from that house. My parents didn't know what to make of it, so they sent me back to England to live with my aunt and uncle. Not a day goes by that I don't think about that place. Also, did I mention I hate clowns?